Hi, it's David. I'm a teacher at Still Life Ceramic Studios. This is just a general little video of something that I got inspired by the other day. I was going through YouTube, and of course there's great inspiration because there's amazing potters on there. And I was watching a potter named Shozo Mishikawa, and he was doing these large, he does these very large, very organic vessels with very extreme textures on the outside. And I was intrigued by his process. And so I thought to myself, because one of my favorite forms to make and to work on is the chawan, which is the ceremonial tea bowl for the tea ceremony. And I thought I would just try and put his technique, which is done very large, and see if I could translate that into a much smaller vessel. So why don't you take a look and we'll give it a shot together. Okay, so I've already centered, and so now I'm just gonna make my opening. Now when I'm working on a chawan, because of the classic form of a chawan, has a very substantial foot, right? I'm going to leave more clay at the base than I normally would. So instead of like leaving a quarter to a half an inch, I'm going to leave more like a half to 3/4 of an inch. If I feel it's too thick when I'm going through the trimming process, I can always shave it down. But I can never make it bigger, so it's better to err on the larger side. So it wastes a bit of clay, but it's just clay and we can recycle it. Especially because Still Life has an amazing pug mill, which we're going to set up someday soon. Okay, anyway, so I'm going to set my bottom just like I normally would. When I'm working on a chawan, I want to make my base kind of the width that I'm going to want the chawan to be, right? And chawans can very often feel very organic and very natural and very sort of almost nature-based, and that's one of the things that I really like about them. There's a casualness to them very often. Sometimes not. Sometimes they're a little more formal. All right, so the first thing that I saw him do is he actually just made a couple of pulls, which I'm going to do. And he pulled clay up a little bit beyond where the height of where he wanted it seemed that his final piece ended up. Right? Okay, and this is what I thought was kind of interesting. Then he went back and from the very bottom, he just began to collar the whole thing in. The entire form, he just collared it in tighter and tighter and tighter, which of course made it taller and taller and taller, but it also made it thicker and thicker and thicker. So he ended up with something like this, right? Only his was bigger. But it's very thick. You can see now it's like super thick here. So now, and then the next step, so what he just started going to town on it, but because this is going to be a chawan, and you're actually, people, they're going to drink tea out of it, you kind of want to protect the lip a little bit. You don't want that really rough edge on the lip, so I'm just going to mark the lip. Just going to make a little mark there. And that's going to tell me that I'm going to, whatever scoring and scraping I do down here, I'm going to stop it there. Okay? So I've got a couple of tools I'm going to use. I've got got this sort of wire cutter. You can see it's got, if you can see it, it's got these sort of, it's a twisted wire cutter. It's got two different edges to it. And I'm just going to play with this a little bit. I'm just going to like come up here and just gouge out some clay. Right? And then maybe I'll do one like this across here. And then maybe like that. I'm just going to like just sort of score it randomly. I don't want to do any kind of organized pattern, I don't think, because I just want to keep this sort of really organic and fluid. It's going to create all these sort of thick and thin spots, which could be problematic. I don't know. We'll see what happens here. All right, and I'm just going to keep going around making these scores with the different and we're doing this together. I did one about a few minutes ago just to make sure it's actually possible. And it came out okay. I was much more circumspect than I'm being now. I'm really kind of just pushing it much further in terms of the gouging I'm doing now than I did in my experimentation, my first one. But I just want to, I just want to work this out a little bit and see what happens. I'm not particularly concerned about, obviously, my philosophy on this. I'm not particularly concerned about finishing this piece. What I'm really curious about is the process here, because I was so intrigued by it and it came out so amazing. Alright, so now you can see I've got this, I just kind of got this all gouged up and scored up. One thing I want to do now before I start the next step is I want to take out some of this excess clay at the bottom. And I'm going to do this now because it's just going to be easier for me. I found this out when I was playing around with this earlier. So I'm just going to take that off real quick. Alright, okay, so now you kind of need a tool for this because this is so tall. If this was shorter, you wouldn't need a tool. I think this is a good speed too. I really don't want this going very fast. And now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to start pressing out. Right? Just pushing out, just slowly. I don't want to do this too fast, obviously. I want to ease the clay out. And I'm just going to start at the bottom, start pushing, and then trying to keep the whole, then I sort of get the whole tool involved. And just kind of pushing and pushing and pushing. Alright, so I'm going to stop this just so we can take a look and see what's happening. So you can see now all those score marks and gouges that I put in there, they're really starting to expand and almost explode. And I haven't even gotten started yet in terms of expanding the clay, so I'm feeling pretty good about this right now. So here we go, we're just going to push out. Okay. Alright, I'm going to stop it again. Let's take a look and see where we're at. And it's really starting to get extreme. I'm really liking the way that's looking. I don't know, it's really getting very sort of tree barkish, I guess, almost.
I've got a ton of clay inside here, so I really feel I can get this thing pretty wide. And you see this sort of undulating lip that I'm getting here a little bit in a chawan vessel, or like even if this like if you were going to say make this into a vase of some sort for like you know, Japanese flower arrangement. I'm just going to keep going here because why not, right? We're just working out processes and trying to see where it's going to take us. On the inside, you know, I feel like I haven't really expanded much. The outside, let's see. So now you can see we're getting like some real thin spots, you know, where I gouged away a ton of material, right? But this texture is just really getting really extreme. I should probably, if I was going to say, oh, I'm going to keep this piece, I should probably stop now, but that's just not my personality, so I'm just gonna push this thing more. I'm gonna maybe leave the lip where it is, because that's where I'm getting that real thin stuff. One thing I don't want to do when you're doing something like this is to break through, right? That would be. Okay, let's take a look at that. Yeah, I like this technique. I think it really sort of is very expressive, and is something that I think we could play around with a lot and really get some, you know, maybe some, instead of just using the wire tool, maybe some scores or some, you know, some actual slashes, and get those to open up. Now I'm just gonna, because I have that line, I'm just gonna vary. And, you know, I've got that little tear there, so you know what I'm gonna try and do? I'm gonna cut this off, and then I'm gonna just put another little lip on there. I'm kind of potchkeying with this, which, you know, is not my... I generally would not want to do that. But if, say, this was something you're working on and you're like, oh, I really like this, I want to keep it, you can kind of, that's just a way to kind of, we're just going to try and save that a little bit. All right, I think that's, I'm actually really liking that. I think that if you can see, I hope you can see that texture. It's really extreme and really, it's just, I mean, it's just, those ridges are just so organic and fun. I've got some very sharp ridges on the inside that I want to take care of. Like if it be, just because if I was actually going to use this as a chawan, I wouldn't want those sharp ridges. So I'm just going to, I don't mind the ridges. I like them. I like seeing that they're there. I just don't want them sharp. So I'm just going to just take my sponge and wrap my chamois in my sponge and just let it spin around there a little bit. And alright, that's pretty good, nice and cleaned out in there. So that's smoothed out. I still have those, that spiraling from the pushing out. Okay, I thought that was great. I really enjoyed doing that. I think something that might be something you guys might want to play around with. Again, I'm David from Still Life Ceramic Studios, and
Love the process, not the piece. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others.